Hey, good morning, everybody out there in Facebook land. Just having more awesome revelations, okay? Um, yeah, it really hit me when it comes to annihilation, competition, survival of the fittest. And I could see it out in the wild. I could see it out in the wild where you have a cheetah and a lion and one zebra, and maybe that zebra's already dead, and so the zebra's out there laying out there, and the lion, the cheetah, and let's say the hyenas are all now competing for that food source. Now, obviously, if they uh, weren't so scavengy, they can go find another food source, but sometimes it's hard to find a food source, and the temptation of taking somebody else's in the wild kingdom. Yeah, it's I could see why it would be a competition with an already dead zebra. And so, now we have humans, okay? And humans in this crazy lab experiment, this grand experiment that we're in right now, in this very intentional, purposeful world with intentional things like a stapler, with intentional things like human genome manipulation, biomanipulation, and then we are told to go and compete for survival. We are told to compete and annihilate our fellow man in order to be able to feed our families. And so, and that's no different than sports, no different than any of these different competitions that, like the Olympics, AYSO, American Youth Soccer Association, or American Youth Soccer Organization in California, CYSA, California Youth Soccer Association, all the different sports programming. Sports programming is basic gladiator programming. It is annihilation programming. It is competition programming. It is getting kids ready to go and play the for and against game. I mean, I'm telling you, the programming of annihilating your fellow man starts in the freaking womb. It starts in the freaking womb. And then it gets programmed as you grow older. As soon as you come out, you're competing with your brothers and sisters for food if parents aren't rich. And so, yeah, there's like 10 brothers and sisters, and there's one big bowl on the table, and you're all competing for food. And I'm just like, we live in a very technologically advanced world where we can have agricultural farms and grow as much food as we want. We have like an unlimited amount of potential to have endless supplies of food, and yet we are forcing people to compete. That's a trip. That's a self-destruct programming. When you're forced to compete for survival. That's like treating humans as if they were no better than some hyena or some jackal. I mean, I was very competitive as a child, but I was bred that way. My mother was competitive. I'm competitive. I was competitive, and I had no problems, annihilating my competition in different ways. And I was always very good at it because, the war of Vietnam, you're trying to survive, and it is survival of the fittest when you're in a war-torn country, and then it translates into then the way you grow up. That is instilled. Trauma instills a type of need for survival, a need to compete, to make sure you're not going to get annihilated by somebody else. So you're going to annihilate somebody else before they annihilate you. And that's crazy. That's that's the politics. That's the voting system. That's the companies. It's interesting. I remember when I was an insurance agent, and I moved from like California to Washington for whatever stupid reason. I just did it. I think I was following my heart or something. Didn't work out though. But I remember I was at the the government insurance, the government agency, or the Department of Insurance in Washington, and there was a general manager. What was it? He was a district manager for American Family Insurance, and I'm like, ooh, there's the competition. And he was saying, no, we're not competition. We just trade clients back and forth. And I'm like, no shit, that's true. This manufactured competition between insurance agencies is all manufactured. It's all pitting the insurance agents against each other to go and get the most market share. But then the Department of Insurance, they always adjust the different premiums to where, 1 or 2 or 3 years, State Farm and Farmers and, I don't know, Geico would all have really inexpensive insurance or inexpensive premiums and give discounts for certain types of things. And then these other companies would have to have higher premiums or higher, costs for their insurance. And then it would then cycle back, or it would recycle, or what would it do? It would then revert to then State Farm and Farmers and Geico would all have now higher premiums, and the other companies would have lower premiums. So it was always like a cycle of this manufactured competition. And I'm like, to sell insurance, you're not selling really the product, because the product sells itself. People need it, and it's just a matter of, okay, what kind of illusion of choice can you put out there? You really had to sell yourself, why you'd be a good company, a good agency, because you can give discounts, you have me, I found a way to sell myself, make myself, set myself apart from somebody else. But in reality, there was no competition between the insurance companies. They were all selling the same thing, and every so often, one would have to raise their price, the other one would lower it, and then people would have to go back and forth. And so he was right. All all insurance companies, all companies are doing, the insurance companies industry is just trading clients back and forth. And that's no different out there, when people are selling whatever it is they're selling. They're just trading clients back and forth because it's just all the same freaking products. We're living in a contrived world of illusion of that you have to compete to survive the fittest. It's like almost like if they're trying to apply meaning to your life because you don't have enough of whatever to apply your own meaning. So someone's going to apply it for you and say, okay, for you to survive, you're going to have to learn this skill, and you're going to have to find a way to sell yourself against somebody else, essentially annihilating somebody else. And then there's ways to do it without speaking ill of the competition. But they do. I mean, look what they're doing in politics. I mean, right now, Trump doesn't give a shit if he's trying to annihilate Biden and vice versa. That ought to show you just how raw the actual programming is. And then it gets kind of tempered in corporate America because you can't be that raw like Trump or Biden when they're slinging mud back and forth. And so competition breeds annihilation. It's a self-destruct programming. People trying to annihilate me, guess what? They're going to annihilate themselves down the road because that's the programming. When you're trying to destroy someone else, you're basically going to destroy yourself. I played a part in it too, trying to annihilate my competition, what I think is a competition. There's no competition out there with Jilly Juice. But I want people to understand the difference between antibiotics and Jilly Juice, that they're totally, totally different. And yeah, I did go a little personal and say, okay, well, this person has, is obese and they have all these issues, and you're going to take advice from this person. Well, I mean, that is kind of like a reality. I'm not trying to annihilate them, but we have to look at logic, to look at what exactly are you looking for? What kind of health are you looking for? Are you looking to just do another stay of execution? Then don't even bother doing Jilly Juice. Just go and trade, products with different labels back and forth in the holistic allopathic. But I don't need to annihilate my competition. There's no competition with Jilly Juice. There is no competition with Jilly Juice. Because Jilly Juice does not play in the world of the antibiotic holistic allopathic world. But in every other part of our society, it is about breeding so much competition. And so when you breed competition, you never find balance. It's always about annihilating somebody else. It's always about it. But you never find balance. And so yes, these children are learning, when they're playing sports, when they're learning the politics game, and religion as well, and even some aspects of science. It's all about, how can you be the one with the most toys, with the most market share, with the most this, at the expense of somebody else. And if they're destroyed, it doesn't matter because you got ahead. And that's the world that we live in. I mean, look what happened with me with BuzzFeed, Newsweek, Pathos, Daily Mail, um, Jeff Holiday, and all the trolls are trying to annihilate me, but they're just projecting their own self-destruct. Okay? And so right there, the cyberbullying, all the trolls, it's just a reflection of and the projection of the self-destruct programming, the competition, the annihilation programming that is just in every aspect of our waking being. And so now I finally got it. And now that I finally took myself out of activism, because activism breeds not only annihilation of somebody else, but never ever taking responsibility for your own stuff. It's always projected that it's somebody else's fault, it's their fault, or they are the ones that caused my issues, or they are my savior. Do you realize that's a programming when you are looking for a savior or you're looking for someone to blame? That's the duality programming that I see. And it's always projected outward. No one ever, when they are playing the game of for and against and the projection of savior and blame, it's never inward looking. It's always outward looking. And so activists, we're bred to compete. We're bred to annihilate. Activists are bred to never take personal responsibility. So I knew innately when I finally got off the activism train, okay, and I finally, and I went back and forth because I'm like, oh my God, yeah, they are doing this. But yes, there is a depopulation, but depopulation is not extinction. It's just a reduction in the population because there are so many imbalanced people who want to annihilate each other for no freaking reason except the fact that you are offering something that they don't understand. That's a pretty imbalanced way of interacting with the world. If you don't understand somebody, you want to annihilate them. And so that's why we have this depopulation agenda, because that's a really imbalanced thought process, and people are reproducing on that thought process. And they're breeding children who do the same thing. That if you don't agree with what they say, if you don't whatever, then they will annihilate you. It's not that, you don't agree and then they just kind of say, okay, whatever, and they just don't talk to you. No, if you don't agree with what they say or believe in what they believe, or you don't look a certain way or believe a certain way, they will annihilate you. Not just block you and say, okay, I don't want to deal with you. Annihilate. They will go after you. That's the kind of population we're dealing with right now. That's an imbalanced population that probably needs to be depopulated because they don't know their boundaries. And they're working from a very a nihilistic, a very competitive, self-destruct manifestation. And it's unhealthy. And then at some point, whatever they project outwards on a daily basis, where someone's fault or someone's a savior, whatever imbalances are projecting outwards is finally going to turn inward, and it's going to destroy them. Because they have done nothing to take responsibility for their part in whatever it is that they're thinking, feeling, doing, saying. And so I don't even want to call it karma, because karma just sounds so full of baggage. It's just a projection, a reflection. When you're out there trying to annihilate people, when you're out there trying to blame or look for a savior, but not take responsibility for your own situation, and maybe you never had the means. And I can understand that as an excuse on some level, but I've been around for 4 years. My information is very credible. I have figured out a way to break down the walls of artificial boundaries and say that context is really nothing more than an artificial boundary. And so if I can prove in different contexts, which are the same thing, that you could potentially live indefinitely, regrow arms and limbs and whatever, and show you just on Dr. Phil that if I can heal a wound right here at the superficial level, then who's to say that you cannot regrow arms and limbs and organs, even if you're born without them, on a deeper level? If you're allowed to do that, if you understand the chemistry that goes along with that. And so yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that those that cannot understand that there are people out there that do have a thought process that can kind of think outside the box a little bit. I'm not trying to be like I'm an outsider. No, I'm not an outsider, I don't think. I'm definitely someone that wants to be on the inside, but also not keep looping in the same revolutions. What is it when you insanity is when you do the same thing over and over and over again but expect a different outcome? And I don't know, I don't want to be insane anymore. Our society is so insane because they do the same thing over and over again and they make up new words to reinvent the wheel, but it's the same shit. So, yeah, competition breeds annihilation. Competition breeds self-destruct. You know, when you finally learn balance where both teams can win, where there's enough food for everybody, we don't have to manufacture scarcity. We don't have to pretend that there's a competition between insurance companies because there really isn't. It's just manufactured. It's somebody playing a game, pulling the puppet strings and be like, oh yeah, this. I know even when I was an insurance agent in Farmers Insurance in the district office, and the district manager knew that this was a game, and he was pitting the agents against each other, saying, you know, just kind of triggering them, lighting fires underneath them, you know, so, ooh, guess what this guy's doing, guess what this, I mean, doing the psychological manipulations make you feel like you have to go and just kick ass. And yeah, you know, I definitely kicked a lot of ass as a cold caller, as getting people through. I mean, I, one of my little tiny accomplishments, nothing major, how I made $2,500 in 1 month just to finance myself was that I said I would get like 13, 14 policies, you know, auto and home, and then 3 or 4 life policies for this agent who just started the program. You know, and no agent was going to pay a cold caller $2,500 a month because the most you get paid as a cold caller would be like $9 an hour, and they couldn't afford. But I negotiated this amount with not only the agent but also the district manager, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And so yeah, I did it because I was that competitive, and I knew how to get into the door, and then strategy. So I guess competition does breed strategy. It breeds innovation. But at this point now, how much innovation do we need? How much innovation do we need? I mean, we need a little bit, but there is a balance. Too much innovation, then you have people destroying each other, trying to get ahead, and no one's really being innovative because they can't even work together. There's no ideas bouncing back and forth because you're too busy trying to destroy and get ahead and be the one on top, right? At some point, you know, you can innovate yourself out of existence as well. So, you know, I was, you know, a little bit of the competition that I felt definitely made me innovative in surviving. But at some point, you got to get beyond innovation and beyond surviving and living and balancing and enjoying. Hey, Aria, nice. And so I just want you to understand that, you know, there's always a balance. Now I'm not gonna say don't be competitive out there. If you're in a sales job, kick ass. You know the strategies. I know strategies. You know, if I was back into the sales world, I'd figure out the strategy and I'd go kick ass because I have the energy, I have the know-how, I have all of the faculties, and I understand people and psychology. You know, sales is all psychology. It's not always just, you know, throwing your weight around. It's a lot of it's psychology. So if you know psychology, you know yourself, then you'll know your competition. And then not say you want to annihilate them, but you want them to be your customer, and you know, or whoever. So I mean, there's ways to balance it out. But I'm just saying that so you understand the programming in our society that you can still be competitive but not annihilate. And that's the balance that I'm trying to figure out in this new world is can you still have this joy of competition without annihilation and self-destruct? And that is something worth exploring and worth considering because at this point right now People are so competitive that they want to destroy each other. And that's because they're probably within their own self-destruct, and that's being projected outwards. And then, yeah. So, I don't know, just something to consider. I'm thinking about it. Okay? I'm thinking about it because I'm very competitive. Very competitive. And I also don't want to destroy anybody. I'm not trying to destroy anybody. Okay? And I don't want to destroy anybody. I want people to understand my information so they can find balance and find some kind of peace in their life. In some way, shape, or form, whatever it is. Oh, my hair. Okay, so, so it's still a balance. I think that there can be a healthy competition, but I don't think that really that exists. Okay? Can you have a balance? Can you balance out the needs of the company and the needs for you? You don't want to sacrifice yourself for the company. So how do you be innovative, a little competitive without self-destructing as well as destroying somebody else? That is the question of the new world. All right. Something to consider. That's it.